When you start wars like these, especially economic wars, they have a tendency to escalate, especially when people who are starting the war, uh, you can think whatever you want in terms of Donald Trump, Elon J. Musk, okay? They could be your favorite people. I don't care. Normally do not argue with people's beliefs. I only uh, want to talk to people who can be convinced in the face of clear evidence and data. Unfortunately, people like Trump and Musk are not such people. It is not just ego. I mean, in Elon Musk's case, it's definitely just ego. That guy is an extremely smart man. Okay? I would never argue against his intelligence. But at this point, what drives him is ego. In Trump's case, obviously, ego is there, but he is also an extremely uneducated man. Uneducated does not mean you don't have degrees. A lot of you may not know, if you go to my door, it never says PhD. I do have a PhD. In fact, I ask our AAs, don't even put doctor in front of my name. I do that on a purpose. That title does not make me anything. I have seen a lot of PhDs, both in this school and in other schools. I would not invite to a coffee talk. You know what PhD means? That person was uh, patient enough to be able to uh, work on an extremely narrow topic for 3 years, 4 years, and pretty much do everything his or her advisor said and got the degree. That does not mean that they have anything intelligent to add. Years ago, there was one kid who applied for a job here, and he was a student of my PhD thesis advisor, who's a, even though I hated him as a person, he was one of the best teachers I had around. He sends it to me, and I look at the stuff, and based on what he's done, it looks like it's great work. I started asking him a little questions. He knew nothing about what he had done. He only did whatever his advisor told him to do. His advisor gave him the topic because he was curious about what was going to come out. He didn't want to spend any time on it himself. The kid was technically efficient enough to be able to use the software to get all the results and stuff. But he understood nothing of the statistical issues associated with it. I immediately dumped him. On paper, he was the best candidate that applied. On paper. So degrees do not mean anything. Again, whether or not Trump got his Wharton degree with his money or not, doesn't matter. He could even be a smart man. I mean, he knows how to use media. I mean, I'll give him that. But he has ego issues, and he's not a person who is willing to be um convinced that he's wrong. First of all, he does not keep anybody around him that will tell him no. I mean, you know how many chiefs of staffs and national security council presidents he had to change, right? That doesn't happen by accident because he wants what he wants to do and he doesn't care about anything else. And the only reason he's doing this tariffs because he said he would, and now this time he actually got the majority of the popular vote. He thinks he has a mandate, so he wants to do it. That's all there is to it. I mean, on the back of his head, he's probably thinking, if I put enough pressure on these guys, I'm going to get a lot of concessions, so we'll be better off. Two, since he's not well educated, whatever he has learned about economics is back in the early 70s. And back in the early 70s, uh, there was more of a support for protectionist theories when it came to international trade. There was some good argument for developing countries. For example, it made sense for a country like India to be a little bit protectionist. Why? If you open yourself up, you're 1970s India. Okay, you automatically open yourself up to come advanced technology competition from US, Europe, Japan, right? How are you going to develop your own technology? You basically impose a cost to your own society. You allow your own industrialists to become better. Guess what? India is a much better software industry than we have now. Think about Korea. I mean, after the Korean War in mid 50s, South Korea and North Korea were both in shambles. And South Korea decided they're going to follow protection strategies. They even made a choice. They said, we have these 4 or 5 industrial groups. They're called the Chobals in Korean. We're going to protect these guys. There's going to be high tariffs to foreign competition. Now, just look at Korea. If it wasn't for Apple, I mean, they're still dominating the mobile market. Apple is only doing it better because it's a US firm. But other than that, they're dominating that. They're getting much better in cars. So it kind of made sense for them. But for a country like US, it does not make sense. Let's think about these steel tariffs alone. What's the biggest cost uh, in car production? Steel, right? Well, suddenly, and US, for a lot of different reasons, is not a major steel producer anymore. This is not 70s or 80s. You know, Pittsburgh, they still have a team called Steelers, but there aren't that many steel mills left around. We can argue why that is the case, but that is the case. So Europe, China, uh, they're pretty good in steel production. So we import it. Similarly, Canada. Well, if that's suddenly 50% uh, costlier, two things are going to happen. A, either companies are going to cut down their profits, and you know how much shareholders despise cutting down their profits. B, they're going to try to pass on those costs to their consumers. We're not buying Coke here. If suddenly, let's say, we're importing Coke from Canada, suddenly it's 50% higher. It's not going to affect my Coke purchasing decisions that much. If I want a Coke, I say, damn it, I'm going to go pay 50%, 50 cents more, and I'm going to buy it, right? But I mean, not right now, but in 14 months, my second son is going to graduate from college too, which means my cash flow is suddenly going to open up. I was actually thinking about buying a Subaru electric vehicle, new. But now, just because it's electric does not mean it's not using steel. Okay, it's still using steel. Only the engine is different. I'm going to wait because that car is going to cost me a lot of money. I'm going to wait for the uncertainty to be resolved, which means all those car purchases that I'm going to make is going to go down. I was even thinking about getting some. I mean, I live pretty close to the laundromat, but a 60-year-old guy going to the laundromat sometimes can be tiresome. I was actually thinking about buying a new washer dryer at home. I mean, I'm renting, but the thing is there. I'm gonna wait on that too. I'm gonna wait on the vacation that I was thinking of taking this summer inside the United States. I was thinking about spending 3 months. I have a friend who has a college in New Hampshire. That's gonna wait. I'm gonna postpone all those decisions. Now, There are people who are a lot more wealthier than I am. These people are going to do similar stuff. As long as this uncertainty goes on, economy is going to go into a recession. How deep? Who knows? And these things have a way to escalate. I mean, you know how things escalated very fast. World War II,
With the recession, is that measured by the decline, like a decrease in GDP?
decrease in
Or is
GDP.
it, so if,
I mean, technically speaking,
is it quarterly?
it's quarterly.
So like if last quarter's was 3%, this quarter's is 2.5%, that.
No, that's not a recession.
That's not what it's
There's an official definition of a recession, which was declared by the National Bureau of Economic Research. If GDP declines, if you have negative GDP growth,
Oh, so